Hello friends, this is Caleb Suko and this is the Gospel Today. I want to talk with you once again about the Jehovah's Witnesses and proving the deity of Christ. Last time I shared with you about John 8:58 and Exodus chapter 3 verse 14. This time I want to point you again to a verse of scripture in the book of John, which is John chapter 1 verse 3. Now one of the problems with the Jehovah's Witnesses is they have their own translation of the scriptures. It's called the New World Translation. And so sometimes their translation can make a few changes so that they do not see the deity of Christ. And one place that we see that is in the book of John, especially verse 1, where it says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was a God." That is the New World Translation, the Jehovah's Witnesses translation. They say a God. So they don't want people to know that Jesus is God himself, he is Yahweh. So they say a God. That's not a correct translation. The Greek grammar there does not have the indefinite article in it. And if you go to any decent English translation, you will read that it simply says, "And the Word was God." Now, I tend to stay away from arguing with them about these points of translation and Greek grammar. It's difficult because usually the person you're talking to doesn't know Greek, and they're not going to trust your knowledge of Greek. So what I do is I just go a little bit further here. Look at verses 2 and 3, also in the New World Translation. It says, "This one was in the beginning with God. All things came into existence through him, and apart from him, not even one thing came into existence." Now friends, this is the New World Translation, the Jehovah's Witnesses translation of the New Testament. And what we notice, especially in verse 3 here at the end, it says, "Apart from him, not even one thing came into existence." That is significant. And I usually then ask them the question, was there anything that was created that Jesus didn't create? And of course, as they're looking at this verse, they have to answer no. Because it says nothing came into existence that he didn't create. And that's the correct answer. Jesus did create everything as he is part of the Trinity. He is God. And so the next question that we can ask them then is, was Jesus created? And of course, in Jehovah's Witness theology, they do believe that Jesus was created, that he did not always exist. He was not always part of the Godhead. And so they have to answer, yes, he was created, but that creates a contradiction in what their scriptures say and in what their religion teaches. Because if you go back to John 1:3, even in the New World Translation, what does it say? Not even one thing came into existence. And so the conclusion that we need to make and that they need to make and we need to help them make is that Jesus is not a created being. Jesus has always existed with God in the beginning, from the beginning, for eternity past, because he is God. Jesus is Yahweh. And that is where we need to run whenever we speak with Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons, or any other people who call themselves Christian, but yet deny the deity of Christ and the basic nature of salvation by faith through Christ alone.